We talked with you about the fact that after the voting on November 5th, which was just a little while ago, and the responses from independents and Republicans, why they didn't go out to vote en masse. Approximately about one-third of the votes that Trump had did not show up for this voting. Vance said that the White House's focus will shift from 80-20 in favor of foreign policy to 80-20 in favor of domestic affairs. What Vance and Trump heard was confirmed by more detailed polls and counts of public opinion in the country. Inflation, prices, and insufficient wage growth are what concern citizens the most. Take a look at the results of a cable news network poll, which lately has been giving a fairly accurate picture of the world.
Harry Enton from Cable News Network analyzes inflation and attitudes toward it, how Americans perceive inflation, and how it affects their lives.
They think prices keep rising, though it's different in some ways. Look at this. I mean, your expenses have increased compared to last year. Groceries by 85%, utilities by 78%, healthcare by 67%, housing by 66%, and gas by 54%. The point is, Americans feel prices rising in every single area of their lives, going higher and higher. They feel like Keith Baldwin, that they can't catch a break.
The finance minister in new comments downplayed the impact of tariffs on inflation, saying that prices will go down in weeks and some in months. What do Americans think about this?
Yes, they think he's lying. That's exactly what they think. But just look here. Tariffs are going up and prices are going up. Switch to Keith Semenovich's screen now. How did I dare do that? 84% of Democrats, 74% of independents, and even the majority of Republicans. When the majority of Republicans agree with the majority of Democrats, you know that the American public is feeling pain right now. The Secretary of the Treasury may try to say something to people, but they feel it in their wallets. Simply put, they're not buying what he and this administration are selling when it comes to tariffs.
You know, Harry, one thing we've heard over and over again is how the president and many around him blame the Biden administration for where inflation is right now. People agree with that.
No. You know what? I wanted to quote Judge Judy, but I won't. I'll just say that it's like trying to sell ice at the North Pole when it comes to this. You see, it's wrong. Let me explain. This is a laptop. I thought Lantern was promising and provided with funds. It's fine, a year.
It was a year ago. It's especially serious before the holidays when people prepare for feasts, and the food stamp issue caused more chaos. Ultimately, I think many Americans believe that the Trump administration came in promising to improve the economy compared to Joe Biden, only to see that inflation and mortgage rates are still high. And they want this Trump administration to change course. We've seen this, Odai. Trump is talking more about continuity.
I thought that's why he was being so friendly with Mamdani. Yeah, I'm making this up, but it seems like it's part of it. Well, look, Mamdani advocated for accessibility. That was at the core of everything. Everything else about him, democratic socialism, all that talk about Israel, it was about accessibility, which explains people's reactions. As New York and the rest of the country become more expensive, that's understandable. And it's hard to tell people that they're not spending more on groceries, electricity, or health insurance when they are. Everybody knows that, yes.
In the weeks before the election, I traveled throughout New Jersey and Virginia talking to voters, and that was definitely the main issue people were talking about. You know, especially for those who maybe took a chance and voted for President Trump and maybe hadn't voted before or hadn't voted for Republicans historically. Many people voted for him thinking, okay, this is change. And now it's like Groundhog Day when you hear him say the economy is great, everything is great. That's what people really rejected and what really annoyed them to hear from the Biden administration. That
is, they were fed with empty promises 4 years in a row. They elected Trump, but we're still being told that someday, maybe tomorrow or the day after, things will get better. And naturally, this makes the White House throw all other matters into the closet, into the farthest closet, and they'll urgently start looking for ways to cut spending, stop the rise in prices for the population, and, of course, raise salaries. The state itself can't do this directly, but it can create conditions so that the freed up resources. We have a kind of combination here, a funny mix of capitalism and socialism. The market in the country has started to spin up and produce more. We've already talked several times about the fact that there are two ways to improve the lives of what's called the less well-off segments of the population. The first is the socialist way. Take away from those who earn more or have saved more and give it to those who, let's say, have earned and saved less. So, if before someone had 80 and someone else had 20, let's use 80, 20 as common numbers, then by taking away, say, another 20 from those who have, you could call them rich with 60 left and the poor get 40, 20 plus 20. But the total remains 100, whether it's 80 plus 20 or 60 plus 40. So nothing new is added, it's just being redistributed. The second way is capitalism, that is, to get rid of socialism and build capitalism, which is the free market, to produce more property. So we will have more. That's what follows. That is, without robbery, without violence, simply through hard work and creativity, we increase the amount of property for everyone. Without coming in as a thug, forcing, imprisoning, killing, or robbing. I don't know. That sounds too theoretical. Okay, fine. Let's look at an example, so to speak. A flat-screen television cost $15,000 in the 1990s. I remember I was checking the prices, and it was only available to really wealthy people. They started producing more and more of them, more and more, and their price became just a few $100s, meaning it dropped by 2,000%. Well, like $100 for $1, $750, $800 for $500, $900, less than $1,000 for a television that used to cost $15,000. Greater production leads to a drop in price, turning a product from super luxury into mass consumption. And what happens in the process? They produce more and more of them. They didn't exist before. Yes, people were needed to produce them, but they found jobs to produce them. And earnings are growing. They no longer receive unemployment benefits. They are not working. They are not digging ditches. Yes, people are needed to produce televisions. People learned or new ones came, and they started producing televisions. In general, there's more food on the market. It naturally becomes cheaper and more accessible. Before Ford, only the rich bought cars. By building his technical technology, Ford made cars more affordable. And now someone who is called poor and needy here has a car, 2 televisions, usually a smartphone, a computer, a toaster, a microwave, a washing machine, and a dishwasher. He may use it, or he may not. I don't know, but he has it. A needy person in Uganda, Venezuela, Iraq, Somalia, and Burundi can't even dream of this, not to mention Mozambique and Liberia. Why would the poor in the United States of America be considered well off in 90% of the countries in the world? Because we produce more wealth here. We produce more wealth here. Now, many people say that Trump has lost support in his own party. Let's take a look right now.
It's time for the segment, The Left is Losing Their Minds. In recent weeks, we've heard so much about divisions among the right, about a split in the Make America Great Again base, about Trump losing support among Republicans. It's at times like these that I love to turn to cable news network polling expert Harry Enton. How bad is it, Harry? Is the president losing grand old party support?
No, look, it's still Trump's Republican Party, and we can see that here. It's like a rock, quoting Bob Seger. Look, Republicans approving of Trump 6 months ago, it was 87%. Well, that's the same number now. It's 87%. He hasn't lost any support among Republicans compared to 6 months ago. As I said, he's like a rock. The Republican base supports Donald. That's interesting.
Harry, I'm curious how that compares to other recent presidents. And this next one will probably upset our sensitive left-wing viewers. So maybe, I don't know, go make the yes.
Donald Trump, among 21st century presidents who had the highest second-term approval within their own party, that's Donald John Trump. 87% of Republicans approve of Donald John Trump. In 2013, 77% of Democrats supported Barack Obama, and 78% of Republicans supported George Bush Jr. in 2005. Donald Trump has the highest approval rating in his party among presidents who served a full second term in the 21st century.
That was fun. Now let's take a look at some tolerant leftists, how delightfully inclusive and kind they are when faced with someone who might have a different point of view. Of course, they immediately resort to threats and violence.
How do you like that? Hey, wait, you just hit me with a sign. Come on.
Guys, I'm asking security.
Weapons, get out.
Get the hell out of here. What
Will you?
do you?
Nobody, you are nobody. You are a pathetic wretch, and you will use a weapon too.
No, we could.
Really? Do you want to check? Cops are standing there. They're nobody. You support that. I'm for you leaving. We won't leave. They're nobody. Oh, don't you feel the love? Such balanced and compassionate people.
So the Republicans are for Trump. I understand that change takes time, but Sky News brought up an interesting topic. The left side of the political spectrum is becoming more and more aggressive and intolerant. The left has always talked about including everyone who is different in the dialogue, about how you can't exclude one-legged black lesbian Muslims from the conversation, that we need to be tolerant, but for some reason it's the left who are absolutely intolerant of other people's opinions.
Well, that means he's bad-mouthing Trump officials, immigration and customs enforcement, and law enforcement. Excuse me, ma'am, do you support this? They're bad-mouthing the president. What happened?
I said, you're a Nazi kid. Am I a Nazi?
Don't talk to him, he's a troll.
A troll. It's interesting that when you ask, do you support dragging a doll representing the president across the ground, the answer was, you're a Nazi. So you're a Nazi for asking that question.
You know, the left doesn't just have a problem with violence, that's obvious. They also have a problem with racism, open hostility towards white people, especially white men. This blatant racism has been normalized for far too long. This next woman speaks without any fear of being called a disgusting racist because she's heard this kind of toxic rhetoric everywhere.
Yes. I'm glad. White men are literally the single greatest threat to people, their livelihoods, housing, clothing, and the fulfillment of basic needs. White men are the greatest threat to this, well...
I don't see any problems. Hey.
After all, you're a white man.
Well, you can't give me an example either, right?
An example, it's your privilege to be here.
Do you remember Donald Trump and the elected mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, who met very civilly and politely at the White House? Well, the left just went crazy after that because Zoran didn't attack the president the way they wanted him to. So, like a true coward, he went back to calling President Trump a fascist again. You claim that you consider President Trump a fascist.
I spoke up. It's all right. You can say yes. Okay.
Yeah, come on, says Trump. Well, just tell the truth. What do you really think?
Okay,
All right, that's easier than explaining it like that.
Yeah, he went from that to now claiming that he actually answered yes to that question. He truly thinks Donald Trump is a fascist.
Mr. Mayor-elect, to clarify, do you believe Mr. Donald...
Pathetic, Zaran, absolutely pathetic, but
to bow for money for help and salvation, a bright and courageous hero. But he didn't go to the reincarnation of Hitler. Well, he went to a fascist, a Nazi, a threat to democracy, and so on. Yes, gentlemen. In the next video, which I'll release in 3 to 4 hours after this one, I'll tell you who will be leaving the government, the White House, the cabinet, the administration by the end of the year, and most importantly, why, right? Meanwhile, in Chicago, what's already happening is what the young pioneer Lenin's Mam Danny is planning to do in New York.
We are following breaking news from Chicago, where a judge has just ordered hundreds of people detained by federal agents to be released. So,
After months of attacks on law enforcement, the crowds in Chicago got what they wanted. Hundreds.
The liberal judge ordered the release of all criminals arrested for deportation because they are illegally in the United States. In other words, he ordered their release because they are illegally in the United States. And the judge ordered all of them. All of them, murderers, thieves, rapists, those who robbed and killed Chicago residents on the streets, broke into their homes, injured them, stole their cars. All of them were sent back to the city streets as if arresting them was wrong. Judge Liberal, do you think the people of Chicago are very happy about this? Judge, or maybe not so much?
What do you think, Chicago judge? From the sanctuary, he ordered the release of 600 illegal fugitives tracked down by immigration and customs enforcement while agents were constantly facing riots and attacks, working overtime to bring criminals in this lawless stronghold to justice. Justice that this sanctuary is trying to prevent from happening.
We thought something like this might happen. We heard rumors that people might potentially go out into the streets and turn themselves in, as they said, to get arrested. You see this confrontation happening. We saw more than 20 people come out.
Right onto
this
road.
Yes, it shocks Keith. A federal judge says ICE and the Border Patrol's actions in Chicago violate the 2022 settlement agreement.
Because the government was unlawfully detaining people by force. I'm afraid several hundred may have already disappeared.
Gone meaning deported by authorities or voluntarily. But among thousands still in United States custody, Judge Jeffrey Cummings today orders 615 released.
Immigration and customs enforcement agents and their law enforcement allies risked their lives to detain these 650 people. We're going to be even tougher on the streets. If he releases 650, we'll detain 650. Here you go.
Don't you think that the Democratic Party of the United States of America has completely lost its mind? Illegal immigrants, nobody allowed them to come here, right? That's correct, yes. And there's also crime. They broke the law there due to Corona and are also breaking it here. The activist judge believes that the United States government has no right to arrest them. And most importantly, God willing, they'll be deported from the country. Subtitles. The Democrats have gone so far as to gather several elected officials, members of Congress, the Senate, who previously served in various law enforcement agencies, and they filmed a video where they urge United States military personnel not to follow Trump's orders. Are they illegal? But do you know which ones are legal and which ones are illegal? Personally, I don't know. And what does it mean, illegal? They didn't explain. Like, every time you get an order from your sergeant or your captain, you shouldn't just rush to carry it out. Think about it. Is it legal or not? If you don't know, then call the nearest lawyer. Let's say you're somewhere out there on the battlefield, in Laos or in Guatemala, or even somewhere in the United States of America. Yeah, that's it. Still, call your lawyer. If he's asleep, leave a message and wait for his call. Meanwhile, don't follow the order. That's it. So, by the way, I've already shown you their video, and now let's take a look at the reaction to this video. Here's Benny Johnson, who, over the past year, has grown into a recognized investigator and analyst. He's invited to the White House, does interviews on major networks, and senators, generals, and ministers want to meet with him.
I'm not a legal genius, but I wasn't born yesterday. And by that I mean, damn it, I know how to read. I can read the United States Code. I know that you actually can't disobey orders or break the chain of command in the United States military or intelligence communities. Obviously, you won't have a combat-ready army if you do that. He
naturally is talking about the video of 2 senators and 4 members of the House saying that it was a call to insubordination in the army.
Anyone who has seen movies like A Few Good Men, anyone who has watched any Hollywood war movie understands this. Your job is to follow orders, your job is to follow the chain of command, all the way up to the commander-in-chief. That's why the president matters. You can see the result of a poor commander-in-chief. Afghanistan collapsing and people dying is terrible. So you can't disobey an order. You can't break the chain of command. You can't try to persuade soldiers to do that. That's a crime. That's a crime that under American law, well, since the time of the American Revolution, to be honest. But you see, there's no shortage in the United States Code when it comes to rebellious, treasonous, and subversive actions against the United States government and the United States Armed Forces. Congressman Jason Crew, I was a Navy captain, Congressman Jason Crew,
Former
CIA officer,
former Navy,
former airborne ranger,
ex-intelligence officer, ex-pilot.
We want to address the military and the authorities.
Intelligence, those risking their lives daily to save.
America? You all read in the style of a prompter, so what, you know? Well, you can see how their eyes are darting around, and in the end, they say, no, don't follow orders. So
it's hard to be
a civil servant.
But you are servants in
the CIA, the Army, or
the Navy,
the Air Force. Your
vigilance is critical.
And know that we've got your back?
Because now more than ever,
Americans are needed.
We need.
Now more than ever. Thank you. So just don't do what Trump tells you, okay? And not a threat to our Constitution. What exactly are those threats? You know, that's quite an interesting question. Here they say, don't follow illegal orders, refuse them, okay? What illegal orders are you talking about? Please name them. Right now.
Do you think President Trump gave any illegal orders? How?
As far as I know, I don't know of anything illegal, but there are definitely legal tricks going on with this Caribbean strike and everything related to Venezuela.
All right. So the answer is no. Rebellious behavior punishable by death, says Donald Trump. You know, many of these people served in the military, right? Or in intelligence agencies. Obviously, it's not a good idea to come out and say, don't follow the orders of the commander-in-chief. Yes, Democratic members of Congress have called on service members to refuse to carry out unlawful orders. What the hell is this, President Trump? Hang them like George Washington would have done. Classic Donald Trump. Turns out they're actually doing it now. E-M, in a way. Let's read. Pitt Hexet criticizes the Democratic senator during the insurrection scandal as a military tribunal considers Trump's possible execution.
Oh, wow.
Secretary of Defense Pitt Hexet has begun investigating the Democratic senator who urged troops to ignore Trump's orders. Senator Mark Kelly underwent a Pentagon review after joining other Democratic lawmakers in a video urging military and intelligence officers to refuse illegal orders. One
of these Democratic Party members is now being called back to the military. It looks like he was in the reserves or something like that. And they have the right to call him up at any moment. As soon as he is called up, he will be tried by a military tribunal for incitement. So Mark Kelly, the Senator Kelly, maybe he can defend himself by saying he warned against illegal orders, but he doesn't have a single example of an illegal order from Trump. That's why the tribunal may decide that this is specifically an incitement to disobey military orders. If so, it's from 5 years to execution by firing squad.
So Donald Trump called for my execution. I served 25 years in the United States Navy. I did my duty. That he was in a pedagogical state, 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 that in a pedagogical state, that
he was in a pedagogical state, that he was in a pedagogical state. he was in a pedagogical, that he was in a pedagogical state, that he was in a pedagogical state, that he was in a pedagogical state. You are a member of Congress, actually. Here it is, this code. You understand you can't do that, especially if you use your military rank to try to tell people that they shouldn't follow orders.
How is all this connected to Trump's turnaround? Yes, by the way, I want to say once again that in 2 to 3 hours I will talk about who in the White House, as they say, will be left without a head by the end of the year. So, how is all this connected to Trump's turnaround? From dealing with international affairs to addressing our own internal problems. Prices keep rising. They slow down at some point, but changes in economic policy always lead to a temporary downturn. What people call the pain of reforms. Then comes a crisis and either recovery or death, if that's what health means. Well, if it's, let's say, public life, then it's either an explosion of discontent or recovery. And the steps taken by Trump regarding agreements with trade partners from other countries, yes, that is, with various countries, including the European Union, Japan, and so on, tariffs, huge investments in the United States that he brought here, so to speak, supposedly around $20 trillion. I don't know, a trillion is a completely unimaginable number to me. Support for our new government, that's what it is. An industrial revolution thanks to these investments, artificial intelligence. Eager buyers of American goods, cars can be written off. If you get a loan, your debt can be deducted from your taxes and so on. And also the mass deportation of illegal immigrants who took jobs, who occupied apartments, who rented them. This, so to speak, increased the pressure on schools and healthcare. All this actually leads to a decrease in inflation, freeing up jobs and housing. That's why Trump, knowing that after the new year he will be dealing with domestic affairs, is trying to urgently solve two pressing problems. One is called Russia, the other is called Iran. In the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian delegation stated that their delegation had agreed with the United States on an updated draft peace plan and that Kyiv would move forward with this, as they called it, framework agreement. Although there are some contentious points, and, so to speak, Zelensky and Trump need to discuss and resolve these contentious points. Just yesterday, Ukraine's representative at the United Nations said this is not a plan, but a project to surrender Ukraine to the enemy. So Ukraine and the United States jointly revised this 28-point plan to make it look is the key word here, look smaller. Kustovka of Russia. Zelensky is heading to Washington again to finalize unresolved issues. The plan now appears complete. Now it was 19. Again, then it became 28. Now it's 19 again. I don't know if it's the same. 19 as before or different ones. Of course, I haven't seen anything new. Also, Driscoll, we have a position called Minister of the Army. This is not the Minister of Defense, which is now called the Minister of Military Affairs. This is the Minister of the Army. So he's conducting secret negotiations in Abu Dhabi. Well, they're confidential, not really secret. Everyone knows he's conducting them, they just don't know what they're talking about. There, it's kind of with both Russians and Ukrainians. I suspect it's with the military on both sides. The Russians said they don't like any revised or corrected version. They only like the basic, fundamental version that Trump originally proposed. And Trump, it seems, is taking a final attempt to end the war in Ukraine. He doesn't say it directly, but I think the Ukrainians have been warned. That's why Zelensky is urgently flying to meet him. That after the new year, there won't be any new initiatives or significant help from the United States for Ukraine, so to speak. Since, as he finishes his first year, Trump might be summing up some results, the White House is deciding what personnel changes need to be made. I'll tell you in the next video what Trump will be doing. If we look at Project 2025 as a roadmap that was put together during the 4 years Trump was not in power in the White House, then the growth of people's incomes is expected through simplifying and reducing taxes, deregulation, and cheaper energy, plus the creation of new industries as a replacement for Southeast Asia and Mexico. It is planned to switch to two income tax rates, 15% and 30%. But at the same time, many permitted deductions and write-offs will be eliminated. You either pay 15 or 30, that's it. And to stimulate investments, taxes on dividends, capital gains, and corporate taxes will be reduced. That is, the money the government used to take and place elsewhere. There in Bangladesh, they gave $1 million so that they could teach the residents of Bangladesh that homosexuality is also okay. So for customs duties, the next thing is a minimum of 10% from either side. So to speak, when countries have done something wrong to us, we don't like them, they don't do what we want, they don't go along with relations. Or even more, like what's happening with China. Oh, I'm already confused. I remember that 60% of them are now imposed on China, but maybe it's already changed since then. So these ones, prices, they will help bring manufacturing back to the United States and create well-paid jobs in the country. Ending subsidies, green energy, expanding oil and gas production, selling gas and oil abroad. All of this should bring in funds, free up resources that we previously had, so to speak, in the negative, in the red. That's what it's called. Yes, what we used to have to pay, but now it will go into the plus. The artificial intelligence boom and related projects, data centers, networks. New generations are already noticeably influencing gross domestic product growth. Thousands of high-paying engineering, construction, and energy jobs are being created, plus local businesses are developing. Well, as soon as something is being built around, there are restaurants, shoe repair shops, barbershops, anything you can think of, yeah. The rise in stock prices means that artificial intelligence, yes, increases the wealth of households that own securities. Large deal packages involve tens of billions for turbines, generators, transformers, cooling systems, and fiber optics. There are power structures and other heavy equipment for all kinds of data centers from the networks. So chip manufacturers, server makers, data storage systems, and network equipment producers are also benefiting. The mining industry, minerals for batteries, for artificial intelligence, energy chains, all of this brings new investments and jobs to the extraction sector, the mining sector, the resource extraction sector. But these measures will be felt by the people over time. I don't know, maybe in a few years, maybe in 2027, maybe 2028, or maybe even later. This means that Trump is now busy looking for measures to improve people's lives that we can feel immediately. Because you see, the feeling, the sense of it, is usually more important than reality. Some people say it's impossible to do everything so quickly, but it's only impossible if you have to change the laws of nature. When you don't have to change the laws of nature, then it's just difficult. It might be very difficult, but it's not impossible. And I believe that with Trump, who has already proposed unexpected, clever, and elegant solutions many times, solutions that were right under our noses, but no one saw them, I think that with Trump it's possible. So, well, let's see. Because by late autumn and early summer of next year, Trump is obliged, and therefore will, to improve the standard of living of the population of the United States of America. In 2 to 3 hours, the follow-up will reveal who was fired, who stays, and who won. Who won twice? Goodbye.